before, but we do have nephews and a niece who are in the Israel Defense Forces, who are in the IDF, and grandnephew, grandniece. So we're tense, but hopeful, very, very hopeful.
Today, you witnessed folks lining the streets as the family of a soldier who was killed took his body to be buried. Tell us about that.
Yes, in our neighborhood, tragically, one of the numerous Israeli soldiers who were killed in Saturday's attack was laid to rest. He was killed on Saturday. They couldn't bury him until today, Wednesday, which, as you know, in Jewish law, we are buried as quickly as possible once we leave this physical world. But that couldn't take place because there are so many burials that are going on in the country now. And the residents of the neighborhood all wanted to line the streets holding Israeli flags and giving strength to the family as they were taking their son to the cemetery to be laid to rest. And there's also a vigil of teenagers that took place the other night of singing together, holding on to each other. This was a very, very moving experience for me as a rabbi. Of course, I've conducted many funerals, but seeing an young Israeli soldier, only 21 years old, Roe Weiser, being laid to rest was very, very moving, and I kind of put so much into perspective.
These attacks took place not only on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, which was also a sneak attack on Israel, but they took place on the Shabbat or the Sabbath, also on the Jewish holiday.
Yes.
And Saturday was the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. I don't know if you knew that day or you knew it a day or two later. Did you have services
No.
Saturday morning? What was Saturday like?
Saturday was disjointed. I went to services as I always do. The services began at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's about a 10-minute walk or so. We don't drive on Shabbat, so and the holiday. I walk to the synagogue, and the president of the synagogue made an announcement that there were sirens in the south and in Jerusalem, and just let us know where the shelters were. And it didn't take very long, maybe 25 minutes before a siren went off. And we all rushed to the shelters. Actually, I never made it into a shelter. Wasn't room for me. I was in a stairwell. Then we went back at 10 minutes, all clear. We went back into the services, and very shortly afterwards, a second siren went off, and this time I was able to get into a shelter. Somebody from the local security team came and told us all in Hebrew that the danger was at a high level, and the rabbi decided that he was going to suspend services. The most dangerous part of the day for me was that 10-minute walk back to my apartment, where I was just utterly exposed. And when I got back to the apartment, ultimately there was a third siren, and thank God we have a safe room here, and we went into the safe room. But that was the day, just waiting, and you become very sensitive, Jake, to sound. And when you heard booms, you knew that the Iron Dome was at work, and shortly after that, the siren goes off. And we're attentive to that at all times.
I only have about 40 seconds before I have to give the show to Wolf. So forgive me because this next question's a tough one. But how on earth do you console people during this time when we hear these horrible stories about what these terrorists did to babies and the kidnapped people and the kids who were dancing and are now dead? I mean, what on earth do you say to these families?
Yes, there really is nothing that can be said. There is something that I learned when I was a chaplain in the United States Army. It's called the Ministry of Presence, of just being there, putting an arm on them, a hand on them, just being in their space, just showing love. because the pictures that we've seen of the atrocities are unspeakable. They're chilling, they're sickening, they're repugnant. Any word that you can use that's a synonym of any of those words. So what can you say? What can you say to someone whose loved one was taken captive, was taken hostage into Gaza? We like to believe that Israel and the Israel Defense Forces will do everything that they can to retrieve those individuals, the ones who were killed. We just have to continue to shower all these loved ones with our love.
Yeah. Rabbi Michael Miller, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jake.
We'll be right back.
Mac and cheese lovers rejoice. Dive into the melty, gooey goodness of Bob Evans mac and cheese. Tender macaroni smothered in real cheese. Ready in just minutes with the delicious taste Bob Evans is known for. Bring home the warm, gooey goodness of mac and cheese today.
Moderate to severe eczema still disrupts my skin. Despite treatment, it disrupts my skin with itch. It disrupts my skin with rash. But now, I can disrupt eczema with Rinvoq. Rinvoq is not a steroid, topical, or injection. It's one pill once a day. Many taking Rinvoq saw clear or almost clear skin, while some saw up to 100% clear skin. And they felt dramatic and fast itch relief, some as early as 2 days. That's Rinvoq Relief.
Rinvoq can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB, serious infections and blood clots, and fatal cancers, including lymphoma and skin cancer. Death, heart attack, stroke, and tears in the stomach or intestines occurred. People 50 and older with at least one heart disease risk factor have higher risks. Don't take if allergic to Rinvoq, as serious reactions can occur. Tell your doctor if you are or may become pregnant.
Disrupt the itch and rash of eczema. Talk to your doctor about Rinvoq.
Learn how AbbVie can help you save.
You need to get your windshield fixed? SafeLight makes it easy. You can schedule in just a few clicks, and we'll come to you with a replacement you can trust. Great. Get service on your time. Schedule now.
SafeLight Repair, SafeLight Replace.
Hi, my name is Damian Clark. And if you have both Medicare and Medicaid, I have some really encouraging news that you'll definitely want to hear. Depending on the plans available in your area, you may be eligible to get extra benefits with the Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. All these plans include a Healthy Options allowance, a monthly allowance to help pay for eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and over-the-counter items like vitamins, pain relievers, first aid supplies, and more. The Healthy Options allowance is loaded onto a prepaid card each month, and whatever you don't spend carries over from each month. Other benefits on these plans include free rides to and from your medical appointments. You pay nothing for covered prescriptions all year long. All plans have dental coverage, which includes 2 free cleanings a year, fillings, and a yearly exam. They also have vision coverage, including vision exams and a yearly allowance towards eyewear, such as lenses, contacts, and hearing coverage, which includes routine hearing tests and coverage for hearing aids. You'll also have a $0 copay for the shingles and other routine vaccines at in-network retail pharmacies. Plus, your doctor, hospital, and pharmacy may already be part of our large Humana network. So call the number on your screen now to speak with a licensed Humana sales agent. Wouldn't you love benefits like a monthly allowance? To help pay for eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and over-the-counter items. So if you have Medicare and Medicaid, call the number on your screen now and speak with a licensed Humana sales agent. If you're eligible, they can even help enroll you over the phone in a Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. So call now. Humana, a more human way to healthcare.
There's challenges, and I love overcoming challenges.
When Better Money Habits content first started coming out, it expanded what I could do. For Special Olympics athletes with developmental needs,
thousands of Bank of America employees like Scott spend countless hours volunteering to teach people how to reach their financial goals.
It felt good. It felt like I could take on the whole world.
What would you like the power to do?
Wolf Blitzer is next in the Situation Room. See you tomorrow.
happening now. Israeli forces step up their air assault on Gaza as gruesome new evidence emerges of atrocities committed during the Hamas surprise attack against Israel. The death toll from the terror inside Israel climbing to 1,200 amid new rocket strikes forcing civilians to run for cover. On the ground, Israeli tanks and troops are massing near Gaza, just ahead of a potential incursion across the border. Conditions in Gaza growing increasingly dire, with more than 1,100 deaths and critical fuel and food supplies running out. The war now entering its sixth day, with the fate of some 150 hostages held by Hamas in Gaza, including Americans, still unclear. Talks aimed at their release underway as the U.S. Secretary of State heads to Israel this hour. The other major breaking story we're following: Congressman Steve Scalise wins the Republican nomination to be the next House Speaker, beating out rival Jim Jordan. But the House remains paralyzed tonight as Scalise tries to lock up the support he needs to win a full House vote. Welcome to our viewers here in the United States and around the world. I'm Wolf Flitzer. You're in the Situation Room.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Tonight, Israeli leaders are renewing their vow to crush Hamas as the world is getting a fuller picture of the scope and the horror of the Hamas attack that triggered this increasingly deadly Middle East war. Our correspondents are covering all the breaking news on multiple fronts. First, let's go to our chief international correspondent, Clarissa Ward. She's joining us from Ashdod in Israel. Clarissa, you were among some of the first journalists to see the kibbutz, where a small Israeli farming community at that kibbutz, where more than 100 people were killed by Hamas on Saturday. Tell our viewers what you saw.
Well, Wolf, the scale of the destruction, honestly, was just mind-blowing. It has taken days and days for the Israeli military to even take the step of allowing journalists into this kibbutz, the Be'eri kibbutz, because of the scale, the amount of Hamas fighters who were there, engaged in skirmishes with the army for days on end. You can see the aftermath of that fighting, but also the extraordinary horror that we heard from people who survived that attack, who described Hamas militants infiltrating the compound, going door to door, house to house, executing people, abducting people. Very striking in some of these eyewitness descriptions how calm, how eerily at ease these Hamas fighters were. There wasn't any sense that they were in a particular hurry, that they were panicking. And these poor residents went down to their safe rooms, to their bunkers. Important to remember, though, Wolf, these bunkers were built to protect people from incoming rockets. They do not have, they're not safe rooms or panic rooms with extensive locks on the doors. So unfortunately, many of these bunkers then turned into execution chambers. People found themselves trapped inside them, but unable to stop Hamas fighters from getting inside. And we actually spoke with one man, originally from Ireland, who was separated from his 8-year-old daughter. She had gone to a sleepover at a friend's house who also lived in the kibbutz. And he described to us the agonizing moment after 2 days of waiting for answers. He was rescued. He finally found out that his 8-year-old daughter, Emily, had been killed. And listen to his reaction to that news, Wolf.
They just said, "We found Emily. She's dead." And I went, "Yes!" I went, "Yes!" and smiled. Because that is the best news of the possibilities that I knew. That was the best possibility that I was hoping for. She was either dead or in Gaza. And if you know anything about what they do to people in Gaza, that is worse than death. That is worse than death. The way they treat you. They'd have no food. They'd have no water. She'd be in a dark room filled with Christ knows how many people, and terrified every minute, hour, day, and possible years to come. So death was a blessing, an absolute blessing.
Wolf, he went on to say to me, what kind of a crazy world is this that we are living in? That a father would actually say this, that a father would actually feel this way. But he said that others in the community had felt the same way, that in some way there was some mercy in knowing that little Emily at least went quickly and did not have to live through the horrors that more than 100 hostages are currently going through. Wolf.
That's so heartbreaking. Clarissa, thank you very, very much. I want to go to the situation in Gaza right now and the rising death toll there as Israel retaliates for the Hamas attacks with new airstrikes and, quote, a complete siege of the territory. CNN's senior international correspondent Ben Wiedemann is covering all of this. He's in his new location in Beirut, Lebanon for us right now. Ben, how dire are the conditions based on everything you're hearing in Gaza right now?
They're dire. We understand from our people on the ground in Gaza City that within the last half hour there have been more airstrikes on that area. Now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon local time, the only power plant in Gaza shut down. It ran out of fuel as a result of what Israel is calling its complete siege on Gaza, cutting off food, fuel, electricity, and perhaps even water. And only the lucky few who have generators still have electricity. Now, hospitals have generators, but they are reporting that they will soon run out of fuel for those generators as well. Now, the death toll at this point stands at about 1,100 so far, more than 5,300 injured. Now, among the injured, of course, in addition to ordinary civilians, are things like medics. We understand from the Palestinian Emergency Services that at least 10 medics have been killed. And here you can see some video of some of these medics reacting to the news that one of their comrades has been killed. And in addition to that, of course, others, like journalists, we understand that at least 7 journalists have been killed since Saturday as well in this war.
Ben Wiedemann in Beirut for us. Ben, thank you very, very much. Here in the United States, President Biden just issued a stark new warning to Iran in the wake of the Hamas attack on Israel. Let's go to our senior White House correspondent, MJ Lee. MJ, what did the president say?
Well, Wolf, the situation in Israel continues to be an overwhelming focus for this president. He was briefed by his national security team again today, and he held his 4th phone call with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And just tonight, Wolf, the president dropping by a roundtable of Jewish community leaders held here at the White House alongside second gentleman Doug Emhoff, who is Jewish. And there were 2 notable comments that the president just made. As you know, Wolf, U.S. administration officials are very concerned about making sure that this conflict doesn't bleed out over Israel's borders. And the recent movements, the president said, of U.S. military assets into the region was very much meant to be a message of deterrence sent to one country in particular. He also revealed that in his conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu earlier today, that he stressed the importance of making sure that civilian deaths can be minimized. Here he is.
We've moved the U.S. carrier fleet to the Eastern Mediterranean, and we're sending more fighter jets there in that region, and made it clear to the Iranians, be careful. I've known Bibi for over 40 years, in a very frank relationship. I know him well. And the one thing that I did say, that it is really important that Israel, all the anger, frustration, and just, I don't know how to explain it, that exists, is that they operate by the rules of war.
The president also trying to deliver a message of support to the Jewish community that is grappling with the atrocities of the past few days, and some of whom simply just do not feel safe anymore. Here's what he said.
The United States has Israel's back, and I have yours as well, both at home and abroad. You know, you can see the pain in some of your faces. I walked into this room. We worry about kids being targeted in school, about going about their daily lives. We must all do our part and forcefully speak out against anti-Semitism and push back against the attempts to deny or distort the facts. To make clear, there is no place for hate in America.
The president also said that his administration is working around the clock on the hostage situation in Gaza. He said, I have not given up hope of bringing these folks home. Wolf?
MJ Lee at the White House for us. Thank you. This hour, President Biden's Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, is heading to Israel with a key U.S. envoy involved in hostage negotiations, as the fate of Americans held by Hamas in Gaza remains very much unclear right now. Let's bring in our chief national security correspondent, Alex Marquardt. Alex, take us inside the administration's efforts on the hostages being held by Hamas.
Well, Wolf, it's clear that this is a huge priority for the Biden administration. They're devoting an enormous amount of resources to figuring out where these hostages are and to getting them out. You mentioned that senior State Department official who works on hostage affairs going with Blinken to Israel. We also know that FBI negotiators and agents are also involved, as well as the intelligence community, trying to figure out how those hostages were taken, where they are now. We've also learned from the Defense Department that there is a special forces team on the ground in Israel that is there to help with intelligence and planning. That's according to the Secretary of Defense. In terms of the numbers that we're talking about, Wolf, the Israelis have said that around 150 people have been taken hostage by Hamas in Gaza. There are still around 17 Americans who are unaccounted for. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are hostages. We did hear from the White House's John Kirby that a very small number of Americans, less than a handful, he said, are among those 150, but it's also very difficult to figure out where they are. They could be in bunkers, they could be in tunnels. There are different groups among Hamas, so that's very complicated. Here's a little bit more of what Kirby had to say earlier.
We don't know where they are. We don't know if they're all in one group or broken up into several groups. We don't know if they're being moved and with what frequency and to what locations. All of those questions we're working hard to answer.
Wolf, we've also reported that the nation of Qatar is helping out. They are in direct contact with Hamas. Unclear what success they've had in terms of getting in touch. President Biden has said that the full force of his administration is behind this effort. He did not want to detail all of the efforts, he said earlier today, because then I wouldn't be able to get them home.
What's the latest U.S. assessment of Iran?
There is no place for hate in America. There's no place for hate in this world. There is no place for hate anywhere in this world. There is no place for hate in America. There is no place for hate in this universe. There is no place for hate in anybody's heart. There is no place for hate in anybody's heart. There is no place for hate, though sometimes it be hard. Find a way to find the love and let it go out. Universally. Do not give up on love. Know that there's a oneness in life that you can always love. The real, that which connects and binds everyone and everything together. Unconditional love. There's no place for hate in America. Find the love, seek the love, be loved, be loved.
And teenagers who are being held in Israeli jails. We're talking about Palestinian women and teenagers, and I am told that neither side has outright rejected this. idea. Now, of course, there is some precedent for prisoner exchange. Gilad Shalit, of course, was released in 2011. He's an Israeli soldier captured on the southern Israeli border near Gaza back in 2005. That was 5.5 years in the making, don't forget. But he was exchanged, as you will remember, for more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. The Qataris are in a good position here in that they were the key interlocutors during the recent US-Iran prisoner exchange, and they have had this sort of file at the behest of the Bush administration, let me tell you, back in the 2000s, this file with Hamas. So direct lines of communication open, and this idea is that this would be a prisoner exchange. And as I say, neither side has rejected that in any way at this point. More, of course, as we get it.
We'll see what happens on that front. Becky Anderson, thank you very much. Just ahead, there's more breaking news we're following. Growing uncertainty right now over the House speakership as Congressman Steve Scalise wins the Republican nomination. The job that still faces holdouts within his own party. Republican Congressman Mike McCall is standing by. We'll get his reaction right after the break.
DirecTV Sports Central gives you access to every game, but Terry doesn't have DirecTV. Oh, come on, put that here. Now, you can find the game easy. Barbecue is saved!
Visit DirecTV.com for up to a $400 reward card.
My barbecue is ruined.
We need a small business loan fast.
I got this.
Lone Falcon!